Welcome back to the Junius Maltby channel. It's time for another extemporaneous and unscripted discussion regarding current headlines and news. We have missed a couple of days just due to my schedule and being busy, but there has been some events that have taken place and some interesting news, especially in the headlines we like to cover here, being the financial world and commodities, especially gold. This headline, Citi, World Economy Seems Trapped in a Death Spiral, was the front page headline of CNBC the other day. And that was quite a shocker to see, as they went on to discuss the global economy being trapped in a, quote, death spiral, according to Citi strategists. Some analysts, include those at Citi, have turned bearish in the world economy this year. You think so? I mean, how long did it take them? We're almost 2.5 months into the year, and it's been in the red most of the time, and it's just not looking very good, and they're just now turning a little bearish on it. The world economy appears to be trapped in a circular reference death spiral, Citi strategist led by Jonathan Stubbs said in a report on Thursday. And that headline and those predictions by Citi made the circuit around the world and entered many different outlets. You'll see, just by Googling death spiral, you'll end up coming up with a lot of the articles attached to that Citi prognosis. And then I found the other term amidst that, Oilmageddon, which I thought was a nice little term they came up with, of course, blaming oil for the entire collapse of the economy. It's amazing how they blame oil when it's high for crushing the economy, and then they blame oil when it's low for crushing the economy. Pay attention to that. If we ever get back to $150 a barrel oil, which it could happen, I'm sure. Stranger things have happened. All you need is the dollar to collapse or something like that. But do you remember back when oil was very, very high, and it was the scapegoat? They were just talking about how evil the oil tycoons were, and all the people making money off of oil, and how it was crippling the consumer and the economy and driving the prices of everything else up because of shipping and this and that. So now you have oil collapsing, and we have to blame it for crippling the economy because it's collapsing. So oil just can't catch a break. I would not want to be a barrel of oil. World's negative yielding bond pile tops $7 trillion. More news. $7 trillion of negative yielding bonds. This is the amount of debt with sub-zero yields swelling. And pretty interesting news there. I mean, can you imagine loaning someone money and then it costing you money to loan them money on top of the money you've already lent them? It's never ending. And the funny thing is, $7 trillion is a lot of money. You look at the national debt, we covered that just a couple of videos ago. Unbelievable. What is it, 19 trillion? And then, even more than that with other outstanding liabilities. The numbers are starting to swell to the point where they're laughable, almost, mythical. You can't even really believe them. Everyone has accepted and come to the conclusion that they'll never be paid off. It's mathematically impossible. Now they've become just numbers on the screen and kind of a running joke. Well, it's not a running joke because it happens to be the world economy, and we're all very much tied to it in a way, unless you can, of course, untie from it and go live off the grid somewhere, which very few people can and will ever do that. Another 6,000 jobs eliminated in oil-field services sector. Yeah, oil industry is taking a beating right now. Here's another headline: debt defaults and devaluations. Why this market crash is nothing like we've seen before. A pernicious cycle of collapsing commodities, corporate defaults, and currency wars loom over the global economy. Can anything stop it from unraveling? 2007 all over again. Part 3, banks starting to implode. There is a list of banks that are troubled around the world and having some issues. Deutsche Bank in Germany is at a record low. Investors are once again scared of European banks. Their price being at a record low is at $16.88. That's very cheap for that bank, apparently, according to the article. I've never owned Deutsche Bank stock, but and I wouldn't even buy it at $16.88. So there you go. To me, it's worth nothing. And my favorite article of all that I've covered here, because it all is one giant Ponzi scheme, and we haven't talked about Bernie Madoff in quite some time. But the sleuth Harry Markopolos, who helped uncover the Bernie Madoff scandal, is warning that there's 3 new Ponzi scams, big ones, that are currently scamming and defrauding investors. Now, it doesn't really name them in here, but he's claiming they're being ignored by the SEC, and he's working on 3 of these major schemes right now and hopefully bringing them to light. Now, the problem is there's people that currently have money in these Ponzi schemes and probably have already lost money. It's pretty incredible because, as we've discussed in the past, Bernie Madoff, the guy with the record for one of the largest Ponzi schemes, he's one of the head architects, one of the guys that designed the NASDAQ. Imagine if the NASDAQ was a Ponzi scheme. Imagine that for a moment. Just all of that wealth vanishing, being liquidated, or disappearing. Being sucked into the drains of some Ponzi scheme somewhere. It's possible. It's possible. Stranger things have happened. But again, paint the picture for you here. Things could get a little tight. Money starts vanishing, and the guys with the nice shoes and the nice suits strolling down the street thinking they've got it all figured out could end up broke at the end of the day. It's happened before. It'll happen again. A lot of guys out there right now thinking they're pretty cool with a lot of liabilities, a lot of debt, making their payments though. But all that could disappear tomorrow when they stop making the payments and they're back to being a rag man. BP profit tumbles 91% amid oil slump, falling short of estimates. You would hate to be operating a Ponzi scheme in the oil world right now because it's got to be getting a little tight. And I would imagine there might be a couple of those out there. They might not be the biggest Ponzi schemes, but I'm sure there are some Ponzi schemes that are tied to oil in some way, shape, or form. So you've got all these things hitting the news. Death spirals, collapsing commodities. You've got these troubled banks in Europe and Deutsche Bank and this and that. What is that doing for gold? What have we seen? What have we talked about on this channel in the last several months? Ever since the dawn of 2016, we have felt here on the Junior Small P channel community project that gold had a really bright outlook for this year. So far, we have not been disappointed. As if anything, I have been impressed, and gold has surpassed my expectations in its performance for this year. Hitting $1,200 yesterday, briefly, that is not something I thought would really occur this quickly. And it just goes to show you that even gold bugs, just called ourselves that, now gold hawks like ourselves, can be off the mark in how rapidly gold can rise during circumstances like we've seen. Gold is outperforming even the most optimistic of us. Gold forecast, gold looks to confirm long-term bottom. Did gold bottom several weeks ago? It may very well have. I've said this before. I somewhat thought that gold bottom was going to be around that $1,050 or $1,100 mark, somewhere in that little vicinity, just based on the last decade, where it's been and what has occurred, and the number of banks, hedge funds, and investors and other markets that have kind of opened up the gold and purchased it. I really feel like gold has locked in to that price range as a pretty strong foundation, as a pretty strong bottom. And people that weren't getting into it, that wanted to, you might have missed the boat on $1,000 gold for a while. I don't know, but I don't really see gold going to 1,000 again for quite some time. Sure, it's going to fluctuate in these price ranges. The up days and the down days. You have the little day trader, little bird people midgets come out and panic and buy and sell and panic and buy and sell and panic and buy and sell. It's going to do that little cycle. But ultimately, I think it's going to ratchet upwards. Gold's fundamentals and technicals look better and better. There's just a lot of headlines coming out painting the picture that reversing course from what they were claiming several months ago. Technician says fan pattern in gold price shows big breakout is coming. Gold seeing its biggest gains since December of 2014. Gold market update. Gold closes up $38.70. Speculators betting on one and done. Let's see here, a couple more. Let's see. Gold near 7.5-month high as stocks remain volatile. Inflows of gold-backed ETFs make biggest jump since 2011. $1,200 gold breaks downtrends, defies 2016 price forecasts as equities sink, dollar falls. Dollar's been below its 100 basis points mark now for quite some time, sitting at like 96 today, I think. But yeah, the dollar has definitely fallen. One headline I did not cover here is that Iran just recently announced they would take the euro in payment for oil, but they did not want the dollar. As usual, the dollar, and as we've talked about, is slowly and will eventually continue to lose its favor in the world. It doesn't have that allure that it used to have, that almighty dollar. You know, back when it was tied to gold during the Bretton Woods period, pre-1971, before Nixon basically hung it. So the dollar, ever since then, has been basically, in my opinion, on a downward trend, and it will continue to do so. One of these days, it'll join the ranks of expired and extinct fiat currencies on the trash heap of history, right up there with the Zimbabwe note and the Weimar Germany notes and the hundreds upon hundreds of other extinct fiat currencies that governments have issued and eventually failed due to incompetence and bureaucratic crap. So, in summary of this video and in the year so far, I would say the world economy is looking pretty crummy as usual, and gold's looking pretty strong because of that. So it's continuing. The truth eventually is going to come out. You know, it's just a matter of time. They can only hold these lies so long, and eventually their little house of cards is just going to blow away or come tumbling down. So keep your chin up, keep paying attention to what's going on. Thanks for stopping by the Junius Maltby channel, participating, joining in on the conversation down below. Have a great day.